Hey guys, Blake here. I just wanted to mention before we start the show that after we finished recording, I was getting ready to edit everything and noticed that my audio quality for my mic was a little different. Mostly because I didn't check my settings and it recorded all my audio through my webcam microphone instead of my studio microphone. So there's that. It still sounds okay, it just sounds different. But just letting you know before we start. Welcome to the Monology Motorsports Podcast, Season 1, Episode 7. I'm Blake.
And I'm Marcus.
And Marcus, we're having a hell of a thunderstorm in Georgia right now. If you hear anything in the background, just, I can edit a lot. I can save a lot of things, but I'm not going to be able to remove the thunder if it starts while we're talking. Just fair warning to those listening at home, you may hear some thunder in the background as we start this episode.
It's just proof that this podcast is magic and Thor is happy about it.
Yeah, no storm will stop us from putting out another episode of the Monology Motorsports Podcast.
Indeed.
Well, Marcus, this episode, I kind of worked opposite of normal. I didn't really get much achieved, but a lot of things just kind of fell apart, just got worse since the last episode.
Oh dear. Tell all.
My wife called me. I was on my way home from work, and my wife called me and said that her key was stuck and the car wouldn't start.
Oh, shit.
So I'm like, what the hell does that even mean, your key stuck? So she was at her sister's house, and I had just passed it, so I turned around and went back. Yeah, no shit. The key would come out of the switch, but the ignition locking cylinder was stuck in the on position, so she couldn't turn the car all the way off either.
Oh.
So I tried, hitting the brakes, messing with the gear shifter, and turning the steering wheel and jiggling the key, and that thing would not budge at all. And I thought, oh no, what the hell are we going to do? So I told her, well, we'll have to get it towed home because we can't start it to drive it. We can't turn it off all the way. So we called the tow truck, the same people that tow my car every time, and got them on the way. And I told her, I'm going to go ahead and unplug the battery, let the tow truck driver know the battery's unplugged. He'll need to put it, connect it back to put the car in neutral. So she says, okay. And I go ahead and head home because I just got off work. Well, she calls me and her sister is bringing her home. She didn't want to ride with the tow truck driver, which fine, okay. But she goes, he had to drag my car up on the back of the truck. And I said, why do you have to drag it? She goes, because he didn't hook the battery up. I said, well, did you tell him? And she said, no. So he left it in park and just drug the car up on the back of the rollback. So
I hope he didn't flat spot the new tires.
Yeah, that crossed my mind. So we got the car out in front of the house, and I got to spend some time with it, and it was just damn stuck. I mean, it wasn't going to move either direction. So I turned to my friend YouTube, and guess what is a common problem with a Ford Focus?
Ignition barrel?
Bad ignition switches. So there's a fix where you could drill out the bottom of the lock.
Yep.
And there's a locking little metal piece in there. And if you remove it, the cylinder will turn again.
Right.
So I drilled a hole in it, missed the locking cylinder, and made it where it wouldn't turn at all because it would jiggle a little bit. But I think I got the drill bit into the actual tumblers. And yeah, so I had a Nissan Altima one time where I had to start it with a screwdriver because the ignition switch was fucked on it. So yeah, I took the other end of the switch apart that the locking cylinder turns to actually start the true ignition switch for the car.
Yeah.
So now with the Focus, you have to still put the key in the ignition switch because it's got this RFID chip thing in it to where the key has to be in the switch. But but then you got to start the car with a screwdriver. My wife is very happy about that.
She looks like she's stealing the car every time she gets in it.
Right. So I've got to, what I'm going to eventually do is take the switch out all the way. I got to play with it some more. I just kind of ran out of time. Once I get the switch out of the car, I can take the switch apart and take that locking piece out of it, put it all back together, and it'll once the lock is out, you'll be able to start it with the key again. So
yeah,
it's just a time thing, and it just looks like shit in the meantime. But then it gets better. The Focus continued to fall apart.
Awesome.
Her wiper motor started making a noise, and it started running the wipers real slow. And summertime in Georgia, you got to have that thing fully functional. So it was a swift order from Rock Auto, and ordered a new wiper motor for it, and got the wipers fixed. I didn't make a video for it because my wife was cooking dinner, and I was like, she asked me, well, how fast do you get that done? And I was like, maybe an hour or so. So I just went out and knocked it out while she was cooking dinner. So it's not too complicated to change, but it was just a time thing where I just really couldn't make a video for it. Let's see. The door handle came in for the Focus. It's also tore up, but I haven't put it on yet. I looked online at like what kind of recalls were out there for this Focus, or what kind of thing like mass failures happen on this car.
Yeah. And
luckily, the Focus we have has had every single issue that could be an issue for the Ford Focus. The shift solenoids, the ignition switch, the battery light that comes on and off for no reason. And then Ford tells you that they don't really know why it comes on or off. Let's reflash the ECU, and it may or may not fix it. And that was
like a wiring issue, but yeah.
Yeah, and then the door handle. All those things are mass defects with a car, and ours was lucky enough to have every single one of them.
Well, you're not missing out on anything.
Yeah, I figure, we go ahead and have it all, let it all go ahead and tear up, and then we fix it all, and it should be good at least for the rest of the time that we own the car.
True.
The day I saved my wife, the Civic started overheating a lot faster than normal. So while we were waiting on the tow truck to show up, I was going to put some more water in it. If you don't tighten that radiator cap back down all the way,
it boils over, doesn't it?
Yeah, I just sat it back on there, never twisted it, to lock it in place, and I bowled all my water out that morning going to work, and it started just overheating after a couple miles coming home.
Yeah, because it needs the pressure to be able to keep the temperature lower on the water. So if you don't have any pressure, then all it does is just boil.
Right. I still haven't took the head yet for the Accord. I just finished a stint last week of 4 12-hour days. 8-hour day on Friday. And it was supposed to have been at Saturday too, but we lucked out and got kind of all our orders finished early. There will be a nice car parts check coming pretty soon.
Nice.
But I wanted to talk to you before I take the head for the Accord to drop it off. I want the Accord to be as problem-free as possible. And while I've got half the engine apart and I've got access to pretty much the whole engine bay now, I wanted to ask you, what are some things you would recommend for me to change to make this thing as problem-free as possible going forward?
Right. Considering the age of your car, I'm assuming it was sat for quite a while before you got it.
Yeah, I think so.
So I would say all of the gaskets on that thing, you're going to want to tear that engine apart and change all of the gaskets.
Okay.
Does it have a separate water pump, or do you have to take part of the engine apart to get to the water pump?
Yeah, it's built into the block, but the timing belt and the water pump were changed not too long before it overheated.
Okay, how many miles has it done after that?
I have no idea, because I don't think it's the original motor out of that car. So whoever had done it, it did it, but it overheated because the hose had bust, not a timing problem or whatever. It wasn't the overheating wasn't related to the timing belt or the water pump. It was just related to the hose busting. But yeah, I mean, I have like no idea. Like, I can't even. There's no battery in it, so I really don't know how many miles are on that motor yet.
Right. Well, you wouldn't even know anyway if it's not the original motor. You'll
Yeah,
still have the same tacho on it, but
yeah, that's true.
so it's not going to be an accurate representation. Okay, well, if we run off the assumption then that the water pump's good, I would possibly double check the oil pump.
Okay.
And one thing I would definitely do if they don't look 100% is change all of the hoses.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And obviously oil filter, fuel filter, and I would probably pull off. What series engine is that in there?
It's the 2.3 liter VTEC 4-cylinder.
Okay, so if memory serves, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think some of them had issues where people, when they put one of the new engines in, and they don't. It depends on how they pulled it apart before, but they can over tighten or under tighten the sump pickup.
Okay.
And what can happen is they either vibrate off or they snap and they
Oh,
drop to the bottom, and then you'll end up having a wonderfully dry, non-lubricated engine. So I would probably drop the sump, change the gasket on that while you're at it, and check to see whether or not the pickup's got any blockages in it, and see if there's any untoward pieces of engine floating around in the bottom. Which also, if you drop the sump off the bottom and remove the pickup, you can probably have a good look at the bottom end of the engine whilst it's still attached in the engine bay.
yeah, that's true.
So you can turn it using the crank, have a look to make sure that all of the arms look okay, and that everything's all looking hunky dory back there. See if there's any play on the big end of the cranks. See
Okay.
whether or not that's all looking good. And I'd probably leave it at that point, unless you really want to go as far as pulling all the pistons out and checking all of that.
Oh no.
I mean, you can probably, with the head off and the top of the block off, you can probably have a look at the cylinders as well, see whether or not they're scored or pitted at all.
No, the cylinders still look smooth. They look good. The tops of the pistons look good. The valves look good. Just from eyeballing them. I mean, I don't know if the head is cracked yet until I take it, but I'm hoping it's just warped. But do you think I should change the radiator? Because when the head gasket failed, the oil got into the antifreeze.
Ooh, yeah,
So
probably then.
so it's
It
got
might be
like
worth changing that.
gravy in it now.
But you'll also find as well, if the head went and that went into there, then you'll probably find that the hoses might be degrading from the inside. So you'll
Right.
probably have little chunks of rubber getting thrown into that system as well. So, I mean, with it all off, you might be worth doing a good old flush of the system,
Right.
and then get that all pulled through. So I'd probably do an oil flush as well as a coolant flush on it. So
Yep.
just use some really shitty oil to throw it through, warm it up with the shitty oil in it for 10, 15 minutes or however long you want to leave it for a bit, and then drop it all out and then re-put it back through again.
Okay.
That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I figured while the hoses, both the hoses are off as far as like coolant hoses. So I figured before I connect that shit radiator back to it, I thought about just pulling it out and then putting a clean new one in and going from there. That way it doesn't start circulating whatever's in that radiator, that might be hung up after I've drained it.
Yeah.
Back into the
I'd probably
cylinder head and all that.
what I would do is get rid of that old radiator, and before you put the new radiator in, change all the hoses out, and then have another piece of hose and attach it so that you're effectively missing out the radiator, and then do the flush that way. So essentially, you're not pushing any crap through the new radiator. You're just going to circulate it through the new hoses a little bit, and then just flush it that way.
Okay. That sounds good. Yeah, I just want this car to be as problem-free as possible. After, with everything I got going on with the Civic, I want the Accord to be like a reliable daily driver. I'll throw some shit at it eventually, some parts, but I want it to be the one I can count on while I've got the Civic down to do the serious motor work to it.
Mm. No, that's fair enough, and I can understand that. But at the same time, that'd be boring for this channel, though, wouldn't it?
I know. It won't stay. It won't stay stock very long. I've already been looking at exhaust and all that shit, so it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, I've got a question actually.
Sure.
Probably a silly question. Do you have a points card now for your tow truck driver?
Yeah, you would think so. He gave me a break one time. I told him, I think it was when the radiator blew on the Focus. I called them, and they know me by name. They're like, the purple Honda guy, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. And he cut me a deal that time. At least he was like, it's normally like $60 to come get it, but they told me $50. So, but it was that one time, and that was it. But still, I saved $10 that day.
$10. Wow, you did you go get beer?
No, I ended up. Well, I spent the $10 on buying antifreeze to just pour through it right in the middle of the AutoZone parking lot because I didn't know
I forgot about that. Yeah,
what had happened.
of course.
But talking to the tow truck driver going home, he's the one I ended up buying the Accord from.
True. So silver linings and all that jazz.
Right. Well, all right, Marcus. That's everything that things have continued to fall apart for me since the last episode. So what's been going on with you?
So I got a call from the garage that's fixing the engine on my van, and good news. They said we found a replacement head for your van because they're in high demand at the moment, apparently.
Oh,
yeah, and so good news, we found it. All right, okay. He goes, but there's bad news. All right, okay, all right. I'm stealing myself for like more money and all the rest of it. He's like, well, the sort of reconned sort of replacement head that they took off of an old customer's engine that they'd been given to pull apart, which is why it cost me less to get it redone. They put it all on there, and they bolted it all up together, took it for a test drive. The van ran smooth with the new cams, obviously, because it was the cams in the end that gave way and destroyed themselves and threw the engine into a hissy fit. And when they took it for the test drive, they noticed it was smoking on tickover. Now, I don't know what you know about UK's MOT laws, but recently they have changed. And for diesels, if the van or the car, which is a diesel, if it smokes at any point during the MOT when the engine is on, then it's an automatic failure. There are to be no visible smoke coming from the back of the vehicle, or it's straight up, that's a fail. It's not going to pass emission checks. They don't even bother looking. They will just straight up fail it. So that's not great, considering that coming up soon, funnily enough, in August, is the MOT for my van.
Oh, no.
Now, the guys at the garage, they were like, look, we're the ones that said that this head is going to be good and it was going to go on there and that, it was going to be perfectly fine. They turned around and said, we're going to send this head off and we're going to get it all redone by specialists that do the heads for them, and they're going to bring it back, all for the beautiful fee of nothing.
All right,
because it's their fuck up or their issue. They turned around and said that the head was going to be fine. They were going to charge me this, that, and blah blah blah. So I put down the phone. I had a little bit of a smile on my face because I knew my van was going to fail the MOT anyway. And do you know for what reason?
What's that?
It was smoking before I took it into them.
Oh, really? At least you're getting it fixed.
Yeah, so it would have failed anyway. And I feel a little bit bad. But at the same time, I don't have any more money to throw at that van at the moment.
Right.
If I can help it. I'm now in a case of waiting for the head to come back, and once the head's back, they're going to stick it all back on, which apparently should be a day's worth of work for them, because with the way that the van is put together, they essentially have to take all the front end of the van off. So, you know, no bonnet, no bumper, no side panels on the front, all the rest of it. They literally have to strip it down almost completely off to get at that. So it is a lot of work, and it is costing me $2,500 to get this done.
Yikes.
Yeah. But, you know, it would have cost me more than $5,000 for them to strip the engine out and have it completely redone from scratch. So, right. You know, I'm saving myself half the amount of money that I was looking at possibly doing. But, you know, this has meant that I've had to really sort of stop myself from spending any money on the Mini or doing anything at the moment with it, because you know, I have to have one of my daily drivers back, because, you know, we can't fit myself, 2 kids and 2 dogs in our new car. Or we can, but we don't really want to, because it's a bit squishy for them. Yeah. So, for instance, the space that they would have in the boot between 2 of them in our new car is literally one cage in the back of the van for one of the dogs. So they have essentially one whole boot space to themselves in the back of the van each. And I can fit 4 dogs in the back of my van. So it's a pretty large amount of space that they can stretch out in and lie down and fall asleep in. Whereas if they're in the boot of the new car, they have to sit up and they have to sit side by side each other. And it's just going to be ridiculous for them. You know, I feel sorry for them. And it's not really safe, to be perfectly honest. I don't like doing things like that. So that's sort of it for the van side of things, until I get the call to say that it's all done and dusted. They've tested it. Everything's all fine. And then I cannot wait to get it back and get it back onto boost, flying down the motorway at 70 mile an hour, you know, with it quite happily chirping its way along.
Finish that video you were starting when the motor decided to fail.
Yeah. That would be good. I think it would be a good video once we got it all sorted. But yeah. So that's it for that. The Corsa, my dad's Corsa, is still having some more suspension woes at the moment. So after Dad got the rear suspension sort of dialed in, because essentially now what's happened is that all of the weight distribution when it's accelerating has gone from, you know, like flying itself backwards onto the flabby rear suspension and waddling all around all over the place. It's now getting pushed onto the front springs a lot more, which means now it's showed up an issue where the front springs are traveling to the bump stops and then giving them what my dad calls a little love tap, essentially grinding just smashing the shocks almost to the limit, basically. And now we've got to take more measurements to get the springs ordered for the front and get that all done and dusted for my dad's next race, which is I think it's in a couple of weeks' time or something like that, so that he can try it all out again and see whether or not we fixed it. It's become, you know, a game of springs for the Corsa, and hopefully the lack of spring rate on the springs hasn't completely destroyed the shocks. So might take those out and have a good check on the front ones at least. I know the rear ones are fine because we've already taken them all apart like multiple times already, and they're fine. You know, they're pretty much brand new anyway, the rear shocks, but the front ones are probably possibly over a year, maybe 2 years old. And if the springs are that bad on the front end, then the rear end that was bad before may have been sort of masking another issue with the front. So the front shocks could be completely shot as far as I'm aware. But we'll see once we get the front springs off and check the shocks, see whether or not they're actually able to do their job anymore.
Tell your old man he's being too picky. Just drive the car.
Yeah, well, you know, he can be picky if he wants. He's like 70 something, and still beating people. So he can be picky with his
Right.
car if he wants. It's racing after all. You got to be picky with your car somewhere along the line.
I did see a video of him beating a Subaru.
Yeah, this is very true. There are some other interesting videos out there, I think, that I've seen of Dad's car doing some interesting stuff. So I'm hoping at some point this year I might be able to get around to doing it. But with all the prep that I'm doing at the moment for the wedding in the next couple of months, I've got a lot of I've got very little time on my hands and a lot of stuff to do. All fun and games on that. Apart from that, we've had our first issue with the Toyota.
Send it back. Send it back right now. This is a sign. Just send it back.
So it is an issue, the first issue with the Toyota, but it's a very small one. On this car, we've got front parking sensors that sense how close you are to an object when you're below a certain mile an hour. And also it uses the front sensors to tell you whether or not you're going to crash into somebody. If you're driving along and something suddenly stationary and coming up towards you quickly, it'll moan at you and throw up a big red sign and the dash saying stop or brake. I think it says brake in exclamation marks and capital letters. But yeah, so if you park up, it beeps. So if you got to think about it, you're sat there in the morning, you start the car up and it's beeping at you. It's annoying as hell. There's a switch down by the steering wheel that you can use to mute the beeping noise so that it doesn't make you want to rip your hair out and smash the fucking noise making thingy, the little speaker in the steering wheel, to pieces because it's grinding on your nerves. But you press it, it works, and it turns it off, but it gets stuck.
No.
So the switch gets stuck, which means that you can turn off the car and turn it back on again, and it will reset that switch to say that it's not been pressed, but it's pressed in, and it won't come back out again. So you've got to then sort of like tap it and dig your nail around the side of it to try and like flip it back out.
Right.
And it's a pain in the ass. So I got to email them or email the guy that sold it to me and say, look, dude, I've got an issue and I need a switch changed out. But where we've been so busy lately, I've not gotten around to it. And it's been happening for about a week now. So, but I don't drive it that much. So, it's the wife's car.
It's Miss Marcus's problem, not yours.
Yeah, but it's Mr. Marcus's problem because Mr. Marcus has to email the dealers to say that it needs fixing because it's all under my name. So,
right.
All fun and games. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for the Toyota. Oh, and the fun never stops with all of the cars because the Peugeot is having overheating problems.
My favorite.
Yeah. I thought you'd like that. So what's been happening is that basically I get to the end of my street after turning on the car. I'm not racing it. I'm going 30 mile an hour. And by the time it gets to the end of the street, it's already at 70 degrees. Once you've gotten past the end of the street and you start going, into the 40, 50 mile an hour zone, it'll go up to 90 degrees. And as soon as it hits 90 degrees, the fan kicks on, which sounds like a strangled cat being shoved into a cheese grater. It's an awful noise. But the only way to stop it from overheating is to go above 60 mile an hour, which technically on the roads to my house, there is only one stretch of road that is 70 mile an hour, which is a dual carriageway with a solid middle sort of partition. And that's the only bit that is 70 mile an hour. So if I don't go above 60 mile an hour, technically breaking the speed limit, the car overheats and the fan will turn on and it will eventually die. At the moment, I'm having to, shall I say, sprint to work technically
right.
in the car just to get it there. And it feels ropey as sin at the moment. It's you go up to about 60 mile an hour and you're getting a slight wobble that you can feel through the transmission. You can feel it through the pedals. The car just feels like it's going to let go at some point soon, and I'm not looking forward to it happening because inevitably it's going to be at the moment I need it the most. But I've checked the water. The water looks fine. It flows when it's hot. It's hot, so it's not a thermostat issue. This thermostat is working. It seems to be getting it seems to be getting all of the coolant that it needs and all the rest of it. The fan works on this. So it's I think it's having some sort of issue getting lubricant around the engine, maybe. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I can think of. And I think possibly maybe the oil pump's starting to die, maybe, and it's creating a little bit more friction than it should. But we've always known, we've always told ourselves that this is going to be the shit car. It's basically going to get driven into the ground at some point and then possibly used to put a down payment on another car, like we did with ours that was completely, bollocks, needed to get sorted out. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the cars at the moment. The Mini hasn't really had anything done to it apart from me stripping out more of the interior. I found that there was this weird stuff stuck on the ceiling that did I talk about that last episode?
I don't think so. Stuck on the ceiling of the Mini?
Yeah, so they stuck all of this cardboard to the ceiling of the Mini using some sort of it looks like a sealant type of glue that they must have had in a tube that they've sort of made a spiral on the ceiling and stuck cardboard to it to help with the insulation. But, what I have found though is that originally when I was sat in the Mini, I found that my head, when I had a helmet on, was touching the roof.
Oh.
And now that I've taken that ceiling out, it's gained an extra space in between my helmet and the roof of about 2 inches. So there was a lot of crap. Yeah.
What did the factory liner up there, had it fallen or something and they took all of it out?
No. The liner was all in there. It was they've got you've obviously got the ceiling, then you've got the cardboard, and then there's an air gap to act as insulation for heat, and then there's the actual headliner itself, which is like a fiberboard with
some foam on it,
and all the rest of it, blah blah blah, and that just took up so much space.
Wow.
So now that I've gotten rid of it, apart from the fact that if you're sat in there and if it's raining, it sounds like the Albert Hall with somebody dropping nails on the floor, like iron nails on the floor. They've got a bucket of iron nails and they just drop it on the floor slowly. That's what it sounds like when you're in it. So I must admit, when it comes around to me getting to race it, and if I have a microphone on and I'm trying to talk, I get the funny feeling that the sound is going to reverberate around the inside of that cabin like nobody's business, and it's going to be hell to try and talk. But we'll find out.
You don't need to talk, you need to race.
Yeah, but it'd be good to be able to have some commentary at some point as well.
That's true.
Albeit probably me swearing and shouting.
You told me you found something sticky in the Mini. I thought, they found the previous owner's Booger collection somewhere in there.
Oh man, seriously, when I ripped the seats out the back of that Mini, the horror story that was in there was absolutely disgusting.
You found the gold mine?
Well, I found a couple of quid and some 50p's and stuff like that. But most of it was I think was part of a McDonald's wrapper that they'd obviously put their leftovers in and screwed it up, and it had gone behind the seat and fallen down.
Oh no.
That was green and trying to walk, and I had to wrestle with it for 3 hours to get it out the car. But I got there in the end. I just stabbed it in the eye and threw it in the bin. But no, I mean, seriously though, it was disgusting in there, and I'm glad that I was actually stripping the car out because it actually didn't smell anymore once I ripped everything out of it, including the battery that was slowly but surely destroying itself in the boot. Yeah, the smell of the boot was almost like
That sulfur egg battery
Oh,
smell.
yeah.
Ew.
Disgusting. So yeah, not fun. But
Well,
yeah,
all
that's
right.
pretty much it.
Well, do you want to take a break here and we'll come back and do some news?
Oh yes.
All right, we'll be right back.
Hey guys, I'm Zach.
And I'm Tim.
So, this is Plug and Play Podcast.
We talk about tech,
And video games,
lots of video games.
lots and lots of video games.
We talk about Kickstarters,
We talk about life.
talk about game news.
I can't let you win. We talk about video games.
I think we covered that.
I don't think so.
We also talk about craft beers.
Oh, we do talk craft beers.
That's probably our favorite part.
Exactly.
Gotta have our tasty treats.
Exactly. So guys, check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, and all of our social media, facebook.com/Plug and Play Show, and Twitter and Instagram @Plug and Play Cast. And as always, you guys can find us on iTunes @Plug and Play Podcast. So guys, take a seat, or hopefully you're not driving a car, but do something where you can legally grab a tasty treat, crack them open, and join us on the next episode of Plug and Play Podcast.
Cheers.
All right, we're back and it's news time. Marcus Domino's Pizza is patching potholes all across the United States.
Including patching the holes in my stomach, it seems.
I don't know what started this, but Domino's has decided, well, on their website, if you've got a bunch of potholes in your town, you can nominate your town for the Domino's paving crew to come through and patch up all the potholes.
They would not be able to do that in the UK, I swear.
They'd be like, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it here. We're losing money. This is terrible.
Yeah.
So Domino's, they could care less about your car. They claim it's so your pizzas don't get damaged during delivery or while you're taking it home, I guess.
Mm.
I mean, it's ultimately it's just publicity, but I think it's kind of cool to see like a private company handling problems like this when different cities and municipalities have problems with their budget, getting potholes fixed and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool to see a private company spending their money to help a town out. And, not only do they patch the hole, but then they spray paint over it with the Domino's logo on every one that they've patched.
Nice. I bet in England it would be they would do it. They would probably get it all nice and smooth. It would probably be the best that road's ever looked, and then the UK government would probably charge them for graffitiing the roadways and charge them more money than it would cost for them to actually get it fixed in the first place.
Right.
Good old England. Awesome.
Volkswagen and Audi are back in the news again for their emissions cheating. This is getting serious now.
Yeah, I heard. It's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a recap from a couple episodes ago. In September 2015, Volkswagen admitted to using illegal software to cheat the U.S. emissions test on their diesel engines. It was a big deal. It was a big deal for them, and like the whole automotive industry, really. That it kind of sent a sign that you can't cheat like this, and this isn't going to fly. So, prosecutors in Munich have said that the Audi CEO Rupert Stadler has been arrested on Monday, or this is last Monday, considering a couple Mondays ago since I put the notes together. And he's been arrested because they see him as a risk and that he might suppress evidence to connection with the diesel emissions.
It's interesting that this is happening because it makes it... They've obviously got something that they haven't sort of thrown out to the public yet that is obviously larger and more problematic than they first thought. And the fact that they're now getting to the point where they've now arrested, Rupert Stadler, CEO of Audi, that there's obviously something deeper that they want to make sure is uncovered without any more sort of messing around. So it's going to be bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes you wonder. A judge in Germany has ordered that Stadler has to remain in custody to prevent him from obstructing or hindering the diesel investigation.
Yeah, that's bad.
So it makes you wonder how they knew this was going on. They knew they were doing this, but it makes you wonder how much of it was documented at Volkswagen. Like were they keeping records of how many people knew about this? Because when you told me the story at first, it seemed like a lot of the engineers and stuff were kind of blind to it. They didn't really know.
I think some of the people outside of the main loop of the basic decisions I think that they were so proud that they were doing a really good job, but yet really at the end of the day, it was just cheating. And, I feel sorry for those guys because they must feel absolutely distraught that, some of these people have worked in Volkswagen, or the VAG group, as it were, for so long that, it became a point of pride. And now they're pretty much being not taken seriously anymore because everyone thinks they're frauds when all these people did damn good work. But ultimately, it was possibly the decision or the main decision by one guy that then got trickled down like a closed amount of people that's now been found out and is slowly but surely being unraveled. So we'll see how far it all goes when we finally get to the end of the probe, I suppose.
Prosecutor's office last week widened its emissions cheating probe against Audi to include Stadler among the suspects accused of fraud and false advertising.
That's pretty bad, though, isn't it?
Yeah, so like you said, I think there's a deeper story than what we know, and they don't want Stadler maybe destroying any evidence or anything until they can get everything sorted and really see how deep this rabbit hole is.
Yeah, in one respect, I'm interested to see how it goes. In another, I'm not looking forward to seeing what sort of effect it's going to have on Volkswagen and Audi and all the rest of it.
I'm curious, what kind of will it have any effect like downstream to the actual customers either?
Yeah, it's. I reckon. I mean, it could be that I might as well just throw my van in the bin or something like that, or I might be able to sell it off for more because technically it's one of the ones that was not in the issues that's actually happened. It could be that I might get more for my van. It could be that in general, because nobody trusts VW anymore, that I might get less. So I mean that's how I can see from my limited perspective.
Around like in the United States, you really don't. I guess it was kind of a fly-by-night news story where it was out there and it's a big deal and I heard about it, but then it's like you just don't hear about it anymore. It's like, almost like consumers, people that buy cars don't really care about what the emissions do. I mean, ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, it's important. The pollution is important, but just downstream to the actual customer level, I don't hear it. There's Volkswagens everywhere. Lesser diesel versions here, but they're everywhere. You never hear anything like in online groups or anything that I'm in. I've seen people post pictures of Volkswagens and nothing is even said about the emissions cheating. So I don't know if maybe it's a bigger deal in the UK or in Germany than it is here, but
yeah, I mean you'll find that the diesel VWs, if maybe we should look up the stats and see how many of these vehicles are in the UK and the rest of it, but it's definitely something a lot more prevalent over here, and it's talked about a lot more. There's a lot of arguments going on online about it, and the keyboard warriors are getting up on their little soapboxes and then realizing that they've actually gotten up for the first time in the last 5 months, and then sitting back down again. But
right.
Yeah, it's just going on and on and on, and I think some people are blaming the wrong people at the moment, and I think we need to just wait until we've had the full story before we, cast out the blame net, and start reeling it all in.
All right. Well, moving on from news, Marcus, tell us about Podcast Garden. What's a Podcast Garden?
Modsology Motorsports podcast is hosted by the Podcast Garden, the complete solution for podcasting.
If you've ever thought about creating your own podcast, you need to check out Podcast Garden. You'll be surprised how fast and easy it is to get started. Just go to podcastgarden.com and check out their free and paid podcast hosting services. And Podcast Garden is what we're using right now to get the podcast to you. The paid version is super cheap. It's like $3 a month, and that covers unlimited hosting for us. So we can upload as much as we want a month, as long as we want. It is limited. On the free one, you are limited to one upload a month, but it's free. So if you only do a monthly podcast, then it's perfect. And it's the most streamlined service I've ever seen as far as getting your podcast, the RSS feed created and getting it out to the public. All I have to do is just upload the podcast to Podcast Garden, and then they just kind of handle it from there.
So in your opinion so far, that's probably the best service that you've used, or have you only ever used Podcast Garden?
It was the first one I found, and then I kind of looked around from there at some others, and it seemed like some of the other ones were a little more complicated as far as getting the podcast approved by iTunes and Google Play and Spotify now and Stitcher, stuff like that. Where Podcast Garden just kind of, like I said, they just do it all for you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think we've pretty much covered that. You know, so far from what I've seen, not that I've been involved massively in uploading so far, because you do all the editing and I just sit here and sound pretty. From what I've understood so far, you've not really had any issues at all from using them. So, you know, I think we're going to carry on.
Right, and then from going from from the Nightcast to Max Level to the Earwash Show to Modology Motorsports, I've always used Podcast Garden just because it's been familiar and easy.
Well, you can't say better than that, really, can you?
That's right. Well, Marcus, I looked on iTunes, and in the United States, we don't have squat as far as reviews in the United States, but do we have anything in the UK?
We do. We've got two. One from myself, which is a bit of a cheat. But at the same time, I've also recently seen a 5-star review from a user called Fuller87. And he says that our podcast is an excellent, informative podcast and highly recommended to anyone. And we just want to say thank you, Fuller87, for your support. And I hope you enjoy the shows.
That's right. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening. And if you have time in your busy schedule to leave us a review on iTunes, it would be greatly appreciated. Up until this point, we've never asked, but now that I've seen one review, I'm getting review hungry. So if you have the time, leave your boys a review on iTunes. It's time for the top YouTube videos for episode 7. What have we got this week?
The top videos by viewing minutes at the moment is number 1, surprise, surprise, the Ford Focus radiator.
Those are pieces of shit.
4,113 minutes. The second one is the Honda Civic Brake Master cylinder, running in at 1,380 minutes.
Also pieces of shit.
And in third place, the Caterham 7620R video, rolling at 1,332.
Not a piece of shit.
Wow, it seems to be all right at the moment. So I think, if memory serves at the moment, over the last couple of weeks, we've been watching the Caterham video and the Honda Civic video spring places pretty much every single day.
Yeah, they've been battling back and forth.
Yeah, so, you know, we've had a fairly consistent viewership of those at the moment. And, yeah, I mean, what's it, over the last 28 days, I think that's taken from. And the consistency, especially for the Ford Focus radiator, which is shit, you know, I don't think I've actually seen it drop below 3,000 minutes in 28 days ever so far.
Right, yeah.
I think the best I've seen it up to was it 5,000 or was it 6,000 minutes?
Did it get up that high?
I think it got really high. I think it was at least 5,000 at one point.
Probably like right when the weather started getting really warm. Everybody was like, okay, the radiator's gone. What do I do?
Yeah, so, yeah. The top 3 videos, definitely, they all suck. Well, the things in them suck, but the actual content's good, I hope.
Yep.
So, Ford Focus radiators, nah. Honda Civic Brake Master cylinders is shite. Mm-hmm. And the Caterham 620R isn't as advertised, but, you know, such is the way.
Yeah, I've noticed like our self-help and repair videos, if you watch closer to the weekend, the views start to go up on those. Everybody's getting ready to work on their cars over the weekend.
Yeah, I really need to get off my ass and get the video sorted from that. I've attempted on a few occasions to get some videos done, but it's always when I've not got much time and I end up either forgetting to put the mic in the right place, or I put the camera down and don't look at the angles correctly, and in some cases I don't even press the record button.
No, been there
before, or the batteries run out, which is another fun one. And so I've got a lot of half videos, which are a bit pointless putting up when I don't have it all there. And, you know, I don't fancy, for instance, taking apart my brakes on my VW Transporter to then go back through it all again. So until that happens, I'm resign those videos to to the dustbin on my laptop. And if anything comes up again, I'll have to do them. But I can only apologise that I haven't really got the content up at the moment. But we'll try and get some in.
Oh yeah. Speaking of content, by the time this podcast goes up, the first ever Modology Motorsports dash cam video will be close behind. It's I spent today before we recorded getting the different clips sorted into different categories. That way I'll know what's what when I start working on them in Premiere. But my plan as of right now is Tuesday, getting that edited and uploaded. So it should be close behind the podcast. So if you're hearing this now, it should probably be ready. So check that out on the YouTube channel.
I must admit, I'm looking forward to seeing the plethora of fuck-uppery that is going to ensue in that video.
Yeah, there was 2 weeks ago. I had 4 clips in one day. So it's fun around here. It's exciting driving around here.
Yeah, I know you sent me one not that long ago. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And
my wife's flying the car into the people pulled up. Yeah, and you'll get to see it soon.
Yay! Oh, talking about dash cams, my partner, she turned around to me today actually when we were talking whilst we were driving in the car, and she was saying that we should probably get a dash cam for the Toyota. Yeah. So we might end up getting dash cam videos from that car as well.
See, then we can have U.S. clips, we can have UK clips, and then my stepdad drives an 18-wheeler, and he's making clips, so we'll have an 18-wheeler version too.
It could get busy.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how they catch on. People might like them, people might not, but
Well, I like them. That's that's why I want to do them. I love watching dashcam videos.
Maybe we should sit down and put some Benny Hill background music to it and make it sound stupid, but you never know.
And Marcus, if everybody hurries, if they hurry and they live in the United States, we've got just a few Modology Motorsports logo decals still available on the website. But they gotta hurry because there's not many, because I'm getting ready to ship half of them to you.
Indeed.
To sell in the UK. No, it should have been done already, but I've been kind of farting around, so it's kind of my fault. But
well, if you call farting around having 4 days worth of 12-hour shifts.
No, I've been a little busy with other stuff, but work. But so they're coming to the UK. So if you've been on the wanting one, just haven't lived in the United States and you live in the UK, then your chance is coming soon. It's just a matter of me figuring out how to write down Marcus's address, because there's a lot more lines to his address than there are to US addresses.
Yeah, that's because mine's descriptive.
It's like in the back alley behind the 4th building on North Worthinghamptonshire Street.
I like the way that you're making up streets just to make it sound funny. It's not as bad as that. Although I must admit, when I spoke to Andrew on another podcast that I've frequented before, the Fallout feed, when he wanted to send something to me, he got royally confused and had to ask me at least twice whether or not I'd actually written that down correctly.
Yeah, that's what I need. I need you to just write your address down and send me a picture of it. Then I go, oh, okay, that's how you do it. And then I write it on the envelope.
I literally messaged it exactly how it should look.
Okay, that's how it's supposed to be? Line by line? Okay.
Yeah, line by line. Yeah, because it's sort of like house name, number, and the street, because otherwise it gets too long. And then the area, and then the county, which is Wiltshire. And then at the end, my postcode. It goes in order, basically, slowly moving out. So if you think about it along the lines of, it pinpoints my house or house name. It then pinpoints the street I'm on, then the area that I'm in, and then postcode, which should then give everything, all the information. And then once they're here, then we can figure out a proper shipping methods from the UK.
You're free in the US. If you live in the US, the shipping's free. The UK is still to be determined. But if you live in the US, $5, you get your very own Modology Motorsports logo decal. Now, if you've got ideas for things that I need to change on this Honda Accord while I've got the cylinder head off, or if you've got a story about your Booger collection under your seat in your car, we'd love to hear all about it. at modologymotorsports@gmail.com.
And if you want to catch us on Twitter, we're at Modology Motors.
We've got this awesome Facebook group. I just posted this video of this diesel Jetta, this racing Jetta. It had NOS, had the whole works, but just sitting there just chugging out black smoke the whole time. That one would not pass emissions in the UK whatsoever.
Definitely not.
You can see these awesome videos that I share in the group at facebook.com/groups/Modology Motorsports. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, I look at stuff a lot. I don't always type a lot. Give me a reason to. At Hesser414.
And you can catch me at Brunt_Marcus. And you can also catch us on YouTube, obviously, which is, I think it's youtube.com and then / and then a load of random letters and numbers that make absolutely zero sense.
But you can fix that by subscribing.
Yep. If you subscribe and, like us, get your friends to subscribe and like us. It'll be brilliant. I mean, we've had a couple of extra ones. I think we're up to like 67 subscribers now on YouTube. Yeah. So we need to get, once you start doing that, we can get more content up a lot more quickly, and also we'll be able to be seen a lot easier. And we won't have we won't have a string of what seems like somebody's Chinese order left on there. Maybe it's something that 6B would probably order.
Right. Fuck 6B.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think we're done and dusted, I think, Blake.
All right. Well, that sounds like an episode, season 1, episode 7 to me.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.
You fucking with the best. You fucking with the facts. Yeah. I don't even know what else to say. Let that 808 right out, though. Yeah.
All right, we're clear. That's
We're
a podcast.
Yep. And then in another 14 or 15 days, we've got to do another one.
I know it. I love it.